Behind me you see my Prinsu roof rack for the 5th gen 4Runner. I ordered this from Rock Your 4x4 in Tennessee and they got it delivered really quick. So I've got it all installed and ready to go. Now if you have already bought yours and you're looking just to get the instructions, I'll put a timestamp in the description below, so just scroll down to that, click it, and you can skip ahead of all of this. If you haven't bought one yet and you want to stick around and hear about some of the options, then keep watching. Now you have several options with this roof rack. One of those is the length of the roof rack. They do like a quarter rack, they do a 7/8, but I just went with the full length roof rack, which goes all the way from the back of the 4Runner up to just behind where the windshield lies. The other option you have is to do with how it is mounted. No matter which version you get 2 mounting points in the rear that go into the factory mounting points. And then it is the front end that may be different. You can do one that is a no drill version that just has some 3M sticky pads that sit on the roof. I have heard that they are incredibly strong, but I wanted to put a rooftop tent on mine, so I'm looking for something a little stronger. So I've gone with the drill version. Now drilling into your roof can be a scary thing to do. It is actually really easy. If you want to do it reliably and you want someone else to do it for you, then definitely contact Rock Your 4x4 because they do installation too. Now I've had this roof rack on for a couple of weeks now, and my initial impressions are that it is very quiet, it is strong, and I definitely love the way it looks. But I'm not going to do a full review until I've had a chance to put this through its paces and really test it out with the rooftop tent on and with some of the other accessories mounted on there. So if you subscribe to the channel, I'll have that come out in probably a couple of months, or I'll have a link to it up here. For the installation of the Prinsu roof rack, you'll need the following tools. You want an 11mm socket, a T30 and potentially a T40 Torx bit, a Phillips head screwdriver, a drill with a step bit that goes up to 3/8 of an inch, or a set of drill bits that go up to 3/8 of an inch, some wire cutters, a Sharpie, utility knife, and some silicone sealant. It also helps to have a Rivnut gun, although you can do the Rivnuts with the tools that they provide in the bag. The first step to replacing the roof rack is to remove the stock one. On the Trail Edition this is pretty easy. There are 4 T40 Torx bolts on each side. On other 4Runners there are plastic covers at either end of the rack, and each of those covers is held on by 3 to 4 clips. Once the stock rack is removed, take the previous mounting hardware out and give the roof a good clean. In the box you should have 2 sides to the rack, 1 wind fairing and 8 crossbars. One of the crossbars is specifically for the wind fairing, so it might not have the T-slot openings or color match. Put this one to one side for later. They don't provide instructions in the box, you probably already figured that out, so I put a link to them in the description. You'll also have 4 bags of hardware in the box. One bag contains the wind deflector hardware, the next has the tie-down rings, another has the roof mounting bolts, plusnuts and spacers, and finally there's a bag with the crossbar mounting hardware. The easiest way to test fit the rack is to assemble it with just 3 crossbars. You want the one behind the front mounting foot, one in the center of the rack, and one that's just in front of the rear mounting foot. When putting the crossbars in, put the lock washer on the bolt first, then the regular washer. Hand tighten on both sides and then fully tighten with a T30 Torx bit. Make sure you mount the crossbars using the 1 1/4 inch slots on the sides of the rack. Once you have the 3 crossbars on, you're ready to test fit. Set the rack on the roof and insert the mounting bolts loosely. There's no need to tighten them down since you're just doing a test fit. Make sure the roof rack is sitting in the middle because this is where you're going to mark for cutting. This shot shows the front driver's side mounting foot. Place the spacers from the mounting hardware under the foot and mark either side of the spacer on the rubber gutter trim. Pull up the rubber gutter trim from the back, and there's no need to remove it completely. Place the roof rack back down, and then mark where you'll need to drill for the front mounting foot. You can repeat the whole process for the passenger side front mounting foot. You'll need to cut the rubber trim to allow for the spacer to sit directly on the roof. I wanted to try and keep the trim in one piece, so I cut a hole through it using a utility knife. There is a metal core that runs through it that you'll need to cut with some wire cutters. Now it's time for the scary part, drilling into your roof. You'll need a 3/8 of an inch hole in the center of the gutter. I used a step drill bit and cleaned off the hole afterwards with a 3/8 inch drill bit. Once the hole is drilled, you can insert the plus nuts. I read that you can just drop them in and tighten them down using the bolts provided, but I wanted to make sure they were installed properly by using a Rivnut gun. Before installing the roof rack, I applied a generous amount of silicone sealant around each of the 10 holes and pushed the spacers down into the silicone. I'm working on the assumption that more is better when it comes to silicone. The roof is ready for the rack. Be careful not to knock the spacers as you lift the roof rack back up. You'll want to have the lock washer in contact with the bolt and the large washer in contact with the roof rack. Don't tighten the bolts all the way down because you'll want to be able to do some adjustments later. I found that when mounting the center points I needed an additional 3 washers between the spacer and the roof rack feet. This stops the rack from bending down in the middle, which is something I'd seen complaints about online. With the exception of the very rear crossbar, add each of the crossbars in the 1 1/4 inch slots on the side of the roof rack. Start by hand tightening both sides before going back to tighten them down with the T30 Torx bit. The very rear crossbar will need to have the rear bolt through the hole at the back and the front bolt in the 1 1/4 inch slot. This allows it to sit behind the shark fin antenna. The wind fairing will be mounted to the silver crossbar. You'll need to put a lock washer and regular washer on each of the bolts, put them through the fairing, and then place the T-slot nuts a single turn on the other side. Once you got all of them, you can slide the fairing onto the crossbar, putting the T-slot nuts into the T-slot on the crossbar. Once it's completely on, you can tighten everything down with a Phillips head screwdriver. I really recommend getting the noise reducing trim. It sits tight against the roof, cutting down the wind noise. You'll need to push it onto the bottom of the fairing, rubber side down. There is a little excess on the end which you'll need to cut off. Once you've installed all of the crossbars and the wind fairing, you're ready to tighten the roof rack down onto the roof. Your roof rack's now ready to load up with whatever you want to put on it. Rooftop tents, cherry cans, traction boards, whatever. If you found this installation guide useful, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to see more of my 4Runner projects in the future.